In this video, we're going to look at the lower half of the character panel, and if you don't see that, you might have to show the options here under the flyout menu. You can also press these tiny up and down arrows on the tab of the panel, and this goes for most of the panels in Illustrator. Pressing these arrows cycles through the different layouts of that panel. I've pasted my text into this area type object here, and I'll zoom in so we can see it better. The first thing I want to do is change it to all capitals, and I can do that by clicking this button here. Now note that this is just a style on the text. It doesn't really change the characters, so even if I were to type some lowercase letters, they'd still look like uppercase letters. I could also choose small caps, and you can notice that the uppercase letters are regular size and the lowercase letters are small capitals. I can use a superscript, so for example if I had a footnote in my text, or a subscript, meaning that the subscript character would be smaller and below the other characters. I can choose to underline the text and or strike through it, but I just want all caps. I'm going to change my font to Roadway, and I can just type the first few letters, R-O-A, and jump right to that font, and then I'll tab down and I want the regular version of this. I can change my point size here, as you know, and I can also use my keyboard shortcut, Command-Shift and the greater than symbol. It's also the period key on my keyboard, and on Windows that would be Control-Shift and the greater than symbol. Here are the vertical and horizontal scaling fields. I want this bottom line of text to be larger, but I don't want it to be wider, so I'm going to add some vertical scaling to it of about 125%. Now I should note here that this is something that you want to use sparingly. After all, the type designer took great pains to design these characters just so, and if you start messing with the horizontal and vertical scaling, well, you're just going to kind of mess it up. So just use it with discretion. Now as you can see, these two lines of text are overlapping one another, so I want to go up to my leading field and increase that. I'll put it on auto leading and see how that looks, and actually that looks fine. And notice that whenever something is on an auto setting, it has a parenthesis around it in the field. So even if I change the point size of this type, the leading will increase or decrease according to the size of the type automatically. I'm going to select just this bottom line again, and I want to make it slightly bigger, so I'll increase the point size, and actually I don't like the way that looks, so I'll put that back to 18 and go over here to my tracking. And sometimes with the vertical scale, it looks better to air out the tracking a bit, so I'll use my keyboard shortcut, Option, and then the right arrow key to give that a higher tracking value. Now we talked about kerning in the previous video, and how you just want to use that for display type when you need to adjust the spacing between individual letter pairs. Well, Illustrator has a few different kerning presets, and this refers to just the general amount of kerning that Illustrator puts between letter pairs. So right now I'll set it on auto, and you can see it's a bit tighter, or I could change it to metrics, which is what the type designer has built into the typeface. But sometimes optical is the best choice because that looks at each individual letter pair and it kerns accordingly. Optical is generally a little bit tighter, so now I can adjust the tracking, that is the overall space between the words and the letters, and turn that up just a bit so that those two lines are pretty much even. Now I want to make this 25th an ordinal, and you recall that we used the Open Type panel for that before, but this font doesn't happen to have that built into its character set. So I can fake it by using the baseline shift. The first thing I want to do is reduce the point size by about half, and then I'll go down to this field, which is the baseline shift, and I'll increase that. And you can see that TH moving up. That is up and away from the baseline that the rest of the text sits on. Now by doing that, I've made the line of type a little smaller, so if I go up to my size field and increase that, you see that it increases everything to the same value, and that's messed up my little fake ordinal there. So I'll just select that again and put it back down to 9 points. I'll press Escape to get out of the type object entirely, and it looks like I need to nudge that up 1 or 2 more points. Now this may seem like a lot of trouble to go to, but it's better than trying to make 2 different type objects with that small th there, and I'll tell you why. What if my friend called me and said, "Hey, actually Jane is turning 24, and I need you to change that?" Well, I could easily just change the character without messing up the entire line. The next field in the character panel is the Rotate field. I'm going to select just the exclamation point, and I'll go to the Rotate field here and enter -30 degrees. And you can actually rotate individual characters inside of live type. Now, usually there's not a very good reason to do that, but you can do it as you can see here. I'm going to undo that and show you when you might want to use this feature. I'll just create a new point type object, and then I'll go up to my glyphs panel and look for an ornament. Roadway doesn't really have ornaments, so I'll double-click this character here to insert it into my text, and I'll put another one in there as well. Now I'll select that other one, go to the rotate field, and enter -180 degrees, and you can see that it flips the character so it's pointing in the other direction. I can adjust the baseline shift to move it down a bit, and now again I have a live type object here, so let's say I wanted an arrow on either side of some other text, and I could put that in between. And the benefit of using type rather than outline paths is that if my word changed or if I changed the size of it, those two characters would remain on either side of the type. So that's an instance where the rotate field might come in handy. In the bottom section of the panel is the language menu, where you can choose a different language, and on the right is the anti-aliasing settings. These are settings that are used when setting type to be used on the web or other displays, so we won't be worrying about that in this course, but if you're interested in it, check out my Illustrator for Web Design course. In the next video, we'll start working with the paragraph panel.